So this is Baruch. I'm here at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and we are learning the concept of the Nesira and getting more deeper and deeper into it, where we talked about what happens on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, which is the Nesira of the spheros from Kesser all the way down through the Chagat of Zer Anpin. All of those Gevuros there move over to the Kesser of the Nook. Now we describe what happens on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. Second day of Rosh Hashanah is there's a move downwards, and he says that the dinim, as they start moving downwards, they get weaker. So therefore, they're a little weaker when they come into Chachma, and all of the dinim that came from the Kesser down through the Chagat of Zer Anpin, all of those move down into Chachma, with the exception of the Gevuros of Kesser. They stay where they're at. Now, this is pretty much where we're at right now. So let's come over here. We're on page Kuflan Bates. We're reading the Tivuk Avanos. We could read the top part first, since it's a new piece here. He says, Abira Inyanu. So explain this, and you explain like the B'masha Nevar Tam, while we've already explained, or being explained, is the reason, Hem Shnei Yamim Rosh Hashanah, why you need 2 days. Ma'chiluk Yesh B'neihem, and exactly what is the difference between the two? Shofar, and what's the reason why we blow the shofar? Gam biyom hasheni, the Rosh Hashanah, on the second day of Rosh Hashanah, since we've already been through the process of the Nesira the first day. I guess that's what he means. So let's see what he says in the typical Avanos. Inyan shnei yamim elu, uma ha'hebdel beinehem. Yesh lahakdim tehila bir inyan tekiyah shofar. But before we do that, we really want to talk about what happens when you blow the shofar biyom sheni on the second day. He said ki halo shofar noe l'orer es zer anpin mitar de malsa. So what it is, it's an arousal. It's designated in order to arouse their zer anpin from his deep sleep. But since Zer Anpin has already been awakened on the first day, he says, so why do we go and we start blowing on another day? He's already awake. So now let's look at the words of actually the ARI Kodesh. It says, Avala Inyan, the Inyan is like this. Even though that he woke up on the first day, al yedei tekiyas the shofar, so he's not sleeping anymore because of tekiyas the shofar. Im calls it with, nonetheless. But since the chokhmah on the second day, that is the gevuros of the spheres of Zer Anpin that are going to be built into the nukva of Zer Anpin. On that second day, you need to do it again, because they're all going to build now the chokhmah of the nukva. Raka keser shabal bilvad kaniska, the ale, that's the only thing that remains back over there, but now we're in chokhmah. L'chein adayim ein zehis ordered as gomor, so that all we were able to arouse was those elements within the from Chachma back down again through the Chagat, from Kesser down through the Chagat. All of those went into the Kesser, the Nook. But that was on the first day. Now we're in the second day, different situation. So then Zer Anpin goes back to sleep until it reaches the next day. That's when the Nesira of Chachma takes place. That is the Gevuros in the Chachma Zer Anpin, and the building of the Chachma of the Nukva de Zer Anpin out of these Gevuros. V'yardasham Gevuros the Chachma Shabo. Then all of those Gevuros of Chachma, now they go into, that were inside of Zer Anpin, now they're going down. So now all the Gevuros that are going to go into the Chachma are now going down into her. Then they go back with the Kohen shofar biyom sheni to blow the shofar on the second day. And arousing the mochim again. Vein sorek Zer Anpin lachsor v'lishon od. But then Zer Anpin doesn't have to go back to sleep anymore. This is covering a little ground here. So since we now have an arousal of this muach, which is called chachma, and od shina, there is no more sleep. once you got to this point. We'll see what he means. There ain't so that the Kohen shofar b'shalas service a yomim, and you don't have to blow the shofar in any of the rest of the days. So let's see what we're learning. Of course, we're learning so. And we know that the halacha is simply that you blow the shofar on both days. The question is that if you already did it, as we heard before, if you already blew the shofar the first day, you had an arousal, you had a Nesira, at least a partial one, why do you need to do it again? So let's come over here, and now we're on number Ayin Dalet. So we're reading the Tivuk Avonos, and the Tivuk Avonos writes, Hinech shofar mi'orer as tardemas amochin zer anpin shenaflo the dormitos, and now the mochin zer anpin which had left him, and zer anpin fell into deep sleep. Now they've been awakened. Amnam afal pisha gavarnis ora zer anpin mitardimasa, so even though zer anpin was already awakened from his deep sleep, Biyom Rishon the Rosh Hashanah, the first day of Rosh Hashanah, v'nimshku bo mochim chadashim, and now we're coming into Zer Anpin new mochim. New mochim al yedei tekiyas the shofar. They come to him how? Because of the blowing of the shofar. Mekemen should be Yom Rishon the Rosh Hashanah, Nenase Rak Muach HaKesed. So on the first day, the only part that was actually removed from the Gevuros of Zer Anpin that were moved to the Nuk are those that belong to her Kesed, Bilvad. Ayadei Shenimshkul the Socho, by bringing into him Mochim Chadash, by bringing him new Mochim. Okay, Sarak Lachsor V'Litkoa B'Yom Sheni. So therefore, you have to come back and you have to blow on a second day, because they L'Orer Gam as Muach HaChachma Shabbat, in order to arouse the Muach HaChachma that is outside of her, the Hamshik Bo Mochim Kadashim, in order to bring them in Mochim Kadashim. Now, I'm a little concerned about my understanding of this, and so I just have to note that he said the Mochim Kadashim. That's a phrase that I thought had to do with the Mayim Nukvin that came from the male elements of that is the what would you call the Chochma and the Chasad and B'das that are on the right side. They go on top of the head of Zeranpin. They don't go directly into the Nukva Zeranpin. Now, that's what I thought produces Mochi Chadashim, and that leads to a stage which is going to be a much more advanced stage where the Nukva is now in front of Zeranpin, and there's a complete Yichud, which I think takes place. We have to see that coming up on Yom Kippur. So he's aroused, and then he has this phrase. He says Mocha Hadashim. So what are these Mocha Hadashim going into the Nukva as a result of the Nesira that took place on the first day? They're all in Kesser. Now they're going into, with the exception of Kesser, they're going into the Chachma of the Nukva. So let me see. That's what I understand. Let's see how we can understand it more. The fee. According to what we said, it seems like this. So he's not sleeping anymore. But it's not a complete, a proper arousal. So because the chokhmah of her chokhmah has not been built to the point where she can move away from Zeranpin. So therefore, there's an aspect that is still in deep sleep. And this continues as long as their anpin is not completely and totally awake. So he still had the problem with the dormita. So now this deep sleep of their anpin continues at the Yom HaSheni. Why? So that because still on the first day, then on the second day, you'll have the chachmas that are going to go into the nook and build up that chachma, the nook, and make it so that it no longer has to get its shefa through Zeranpin, but gets it actually directly from what has been brought into Zeranpin from up above it, which is from the Kesser. That allows her to be in the Nasir. Now she's not getting these really still not sure that I understand this process 100%. What is my question? My question is that are these as a result of the mochin going into the nukva zeranpin we have of the mochin of Ima, that is the female mochin of Ima going into zeranpin, it builds up the nuk, and this is what we're told. Meanwhile, the male aspects, that is the chokhmah and the chazam das of zeranpin are on top of his head, and they create a mayim nukvin situation. But there's still something missing which brings out mochim or the shabbos chadashos or mochi chadashos. Now, that's what I know so far, but exactly when is which takes place, I haven't got it clear. Not yet, not for me. So let's go on and let's see what else the Tiv can help me out with as we learn through this Rab. And of course, there's so much to know. So Begadei La'ora is there anpin, his order this Gemura in order to be able to arouse him, a complete arousal. Chosrin v'tokim v'yom ha'sheni the Rosh Hashanah. So we go back and we blow on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. Begadei La'hamshik mochin the spirits of Chachma the Nuk, in order to bring those mochin now, they're going to more and more pressure put in by the shofar blowing apparently, and it's going to bring the mochin down from the Keser of the Nuk into the Chachma the Nuk. The La'ora and to arouse him like this. He has some more to say about that. Let's go over here a number of pages. This deep sleep in Zer Anpin, it doesn't have to continue on after Rosh Hashanah. Let me read this again. Kashem shehis order the sefiris of Chachma talwoy be Yeridis of Gavurus the so Chachma the Nuk. Let's translate this. He says apparently a lot depends on what's happening with Chachma. You need a second day of Rosh Hashanah in order to build up Chachma. Kaz, no question. Chachma, you need a second day. So he said we see like this Kashem shehis order the sefiris of Chachma in the same way that we see that the arousal of the spheres of Chachma. What does it depend on? It depends on Yeridis Hagavuros Asocha Chachma the Nuk, that the falling, the coming down of all of the additional Gavuros that were in Keser into the Chachma the Nuk, Gam B'Shar Sephiros, and on also the rest of the Tir Ne'emer Kain She'enim is Ordanim Ad She'Konsul Hagavuros Asoki Lechem Benuk. So there's the arousal only takes place in all of the spheres, wherever they are, until they enter in these gavuras into their proper kalim in the nook, and then they could be nenasir. But I'm not sure what this has to do with the shofar. But if he said sorag dormita lahamshach ad tishlam b'servis imei tshuva, so therefore you have to have this concept dormita keeps going on every single day. What's the difference? Zod nishlam and bagavuros the hikon in the zochot spheres the nook, because that's when all of the spheres, it takes 10 days for each one of the 10 spheres of the Nuk to have the Gavuros that are coming down into the Nuk from that Keser and that original, all of that pile of great stuff is now coming into the proper places in the Nuk, but it takes 10 days. And this is where he seems to be pointing at. So the question would be, if you had to blow the shofar on the first day and you had to blow the shofar on the second day, then why don't you have to blow the shofar on all the days and go through the same process every time in order to be able to move the mochin downwards? But no, so now he tells you a fact you need to know. Resh is Chachma. The beginning of everything is with Chachma. So that without Chachma, he ikar ha-mochin. This is the root of the mochin. Look at Moshe Kansev, all of this has been written, that the Rosh wrote this, and B'Akdam is Rehov Zanar. He says, Ki ikra ha-Torah hu l'sakei muach ha-chachma. The main thing we have to try to do always is to build the muach ha-chachma, because nothing can start without chachma. V'chein b'tefilas amida also. Oskim rak b'spheres ha-chachma, we're really only dealing with the sphere of chachma there. And if you can fix and build Chachma, then everything along the way will be built too. And since we already had a tremendous horrors of the Chachma here now on the second day, and you now have Mochin Chadashim coming in, Shuv Ein Sarch Lachsov L'Toch B'Shar Service, you made Shuv, so you don't have to go back For the rest of the 10 days of Tshuva, Kikavarn is orders their Anpin Lagamri Batar Dimasa because their Anpin has already been aroused from his deep sleep. Now, there are still questions that I have. I told you about the sequencing, and I'm wondering if what he's saying is that all of this is going on at the same time, so to speak. This is that you have, this is what the answer that I'm giving to myself, that you have the entrance of the Mochin into the Nukva directly. This really builds up the Nukva, but still, in order for those Mochin to really generate a complete new a Nesira, you have to have Mochin Chadashim. So I'm stuck on this idea of Mochin Chadashim and how they get there. Are we talking about the Mochin that come into the Nukva from Ima? Because now we said that the Gevurah Das and the Bina itself, those Mochin go directly into the Nukva. Is that called Mochin Chadashim? Or does he mean that it comes from Zeranpin? Because at the same time that that's happening, that there's also Mochin Chadashim being produced as a result of the Mayim Nukva and Zeranpin. So I don't know yet, or if I've got my words right. But we'll keep going. So he says, here we are up here at this one now. We're doing time-wise. Well, that's really actually the shir for today. This is Baruch Fleischman. I guess we're going to have one more shir before Rosh Hashanah. And I'm wishing everybody a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day of din. Should be a big simcha as well as a day of reflection. Amen.